Witchers, and welcome back to my corner of the internet. I'm Shannon. This back here, that's Bernard. He's my October co-host for a couple more days. And tonight I've got a Halloween book tag to share with you guys. It's called the Halloween Song Book Tag. I just kind of searched up Halloween book tag on YouTube and picked the first one that looked good. I will link that video down below if you want to go and check out her answers to these questions. But yeah, I just thought that'd be something fun to do tonight that's both book and Halloween related. So let's just jump on into the questions. And the first one is Thriller, a book that was an absolute page turner. And I'm going to go with my most recently reviewed book, and that is Invisible Girl by Lisa Jewell. I find all of Lisa Jewell's books to be absolute page turners, at least all of the ones that I've read. And yeah, her most recent one was no exception, as well as the most recent Ruth Ware book I read. They are both authors that just tend to be page turners every single time that I check out their books. So yes. Number 2, Somebody's Watching Me, a book that gave you the serious creeps. For that, I'm gonna go with My Dark Vanessa. It's a book about a teenage girl who has I don't even know if affair is the right word, but has a very inappropriate sexual relationship with her high school teacher. And that relationship goes on to affect the entirety of her life. And this book is so deeply unsettling because of the subject matter that as soon as I read that question, it was the first book that I thought of. Other than that, I guess The Invited is one that definitely creeped me out. That's the one that's kind of about, you know, so many haunted house stories are about moving in to an old haunted house, but The Invited kind of takes on the angle of what if you built one. And I thought that was so interesting and so different from any other haunted house story that I'd read, which if you've been around this channel for a while, you know that haunted house stories are my favorite type of scary stories. I guess maybe because it could be any house. It's kind of lurking, and it could be your house, it could be my house, it could be the house next door. There's something very accessible about the idea of a haunted house. So I just thought that was such an interesting take on the haunted house story. And it creeped me out. Number 3, Vampire, a book you hated so much it was soul-sucking, i.e. incredibly tedious to get through. And I know exactly what book I'm going to go with, because there are books that are tedious to get through, and that's fine. I'm fine with that. I read a lot of literary fiction, and sometimes that's just tedious to get through. But when you get to the end of the book, you're like, that was fantastic. So I'm not gonna use any of those books for this answer. I'm gonna use the book that I felt the most soul-sucked at the end, and that would be Palo Alto by James Franco, the actor James Franco. And I dislike James Franco so much, and yet I purchased his book. But the only reason I purchased it was because I needed to see what kind of book this man was putting out. And the answer is a terrible one. It's a book of short stories, and it's so badly written that it just makes your brain and your soul hurt. Now, I know not liking James Franco is a bit of an unpopular opinion. So if you like him, no offense, but he's just someone that's always rubbed me the wrong way. And yeah, I picked up the book just to see, and it was terrible. Do not recommend. Number 4, I Put a Spell on You, a book featuring witchcraft or magic. Now, I have a ton. I love reading books about witches. After haunted houses. I was gonna say after haunted houses, but probably on par with haunted houses. They're just different kind of vibes, but I love them both so much. And for books about witchcraft, recently in the past year, I read A Witch in Time by Constance Sayers. That was fantastic. Obviously, the Practical Magic trilogy, there's Practical Magic, The Rules of Magic, and now the newly released Magic Lessons. I love all of those. And Alice Hoffman in general. So often she writes about magical realism, and I love that. I love when magic is incorporated into a fairly everyday type of story so that it just becomes even more real. And Alice Hoffman does that wonderfully in so many of her books. So I would definitely say any Alice Hoffman, and also A Witch in Time by Constance Sayers. That was great. Number 5, this Halloween, your favorite treat / snack to eat while reading. I don't normally tend to eat while reading, mainly because I do most of my reading in bed at night when I'm about to go to sleep. So I'll go up to bed like an hour or 2 hours before I want to actually be asleep, and I'll just read for that time. But anytime I'm up and reading, I don't know, I tend to like sort of salty snacks, so maybe popcorn or some sort of chip. But yeah, I'm most generally not snacking while I'm reading. Number 6, time warp. Let's do the time warp again. What book or books do you like to return to at this time of year? Halloween for me is kind of more of a time when I return to movies more so than books. So although Christmas, I do have books where I reread every year, like the Stuart McLean Christmas at the Vinyl Cafe. But for Halloween, yeah, it's mostly movies that I return to, Practical Magic being one of them. So I would like to reread the book though, maybe next year, and we could do sort of a revisited review, because I read Practical Magic before. I had my channel way before, so I never really did a book talk on it, although I did one on The Rules of Magic, and I will be doing one on Magic Lessons. So maybe next year we'll get a Practical Magic review in there. It's different than the film. If you've only seen the film, the book is different. Definitely has the same sort of energy, but it's different. So yes. Next question. Hungry Like the Wolf, a book you love so much you devoured. Like I said, the Lisa Jewell book I read. I feel like my camera's a little crooked. Okay. Invisible Girl by Lisa Jewell that I just finished. I devoured that. Any Alice Hoffman books, I just eat them up. Stephen King, can't get enough of it. I'm trying to think of what other authors I just like immediately purchase and can't wait to get into. Joe Hill, 100%. I love Joe Hill so much. Celeste Ng, she only has 2 books out, Little Fires Everywhere and Everything I Never Told You, but both of those were so good you could not get enough of them. So we'll count all of those. Next one, The Addams Family, a book featuring a dysfunctional family. First of all, is The Addams Family a dysfunctional family? I don't think so. I do not think so. I think underneath all of the weirdness, they're a weird family for sure. But I think underneath all the weirdness, the Addams Family is probably one of the most functional families in film. They're so loving, they're so caring, they're so supportive. They're weird, but they're functional. So I don't know that I agree with the title of that question, but books with dysfunctional families, that's my bread and butter. I love books with dysfunctional families. Two off the top of my head, The Last Romantics by Tara Conklin, and also The Immortalists by Chloe Benjamin. Those are both fantastic, and those are both dysfunctional families in different ways. So many books have dysfunctional families. I think the dynamics within a family that may or may not be dysfunctional, you know, to conventional standards, make for such interesting writing that I'm really drawn to that. Family stories and also sister stories, just because they're universally relatable, I feel like. And yeah, but I don't think the Addams Family are dysfunctional. Number 9, Scary Monsters and Super Creeps, a book genre that you are scared or intimidated to pick up. I don't think there's any genres that I'm scared or intimidated to pick up, at least not off the top of my head. There are some genres I don't read, but that's just because I feel like I wouldn't be interested in them. It's not because I'm scared. So I think I'm gonna have to say none for that one. And then the final question is The Twilight Zone, a book with a completely different and unique premise. Now, I know I have read so many books that fit under that, but I also feel like I read so many books that are kind of just everyday books, family stories, even though they have, you know, twists and they're thrillers or they're this or they're that. The really unique premise, I guess the first one that comes to mind is probably Good Omens by Neil Gaiman. It's about an angel and a demon who have to kind of work together to prevent the end of the world. And that Neil Gaiman is such a wildly creative man and such a wildly creative thinker that reading anything from him is such a treat, in that you know the premise is going to be wholly unique. And Good Omens is definitely one that comes to the front of my mind when I think of that. So there you go, you guys. I hope you enjoyed this. If you have a channel where you like to talk about books, I would love to hear your answers to these questions. If you don't have a channel, I'd love to hear your answers to some of these questions in the comments down below. And like I mentioned, I will link the channel that I originally saw this tag on, so you can go and check her out if you want. And otherwise, I hope you have a great day, and I will see you guys on Friday. Bye.